Mitch. Mitch was selling faulty motorcycle brakes that directly led to a man's death. When John Kramer himself got hold of him during the barn sequence, he made sure the punishment fit the crime perfectly. The barn setup was elaborate as hell, with Mitch suspended by his feet above this massive rotating spiral blade that was literally powered by the motorcycle engine from the faulty bike Mitch sold. The trap gave him one shot at survival: grab a key from a funnel to stop the death machine before time ran out. But it wasn't that easy, and things would go terribly wrong. After Anna managed to stop the spiral blade rotating, Mitch decided to do absolutely nothing. Instead of completing the task while the wheel was stopped, he just didn't do anything, and this quickly went bad for him. The metal bar Anna used to stop the spiral blade spinning snapped, and Mitch just couldn't move fast enough. Mitch got diced up by the blades, leaving us with one of the most painful-looking deaths. If you thought that was bad, just remember they get so much more painful from here. Like the next one. Detective Fitch. Detective Fitch wasn't just an ordinary cop. He had a long history of police brutality and lying under oath that directly led to numerous innocent people's deaths. So when a Jigsaw copycat appeared, who was specifically targeting corrupt police officers, Fitch was the perfect opening victim. Fitch woke up with a mechanical device around his head and wires tied around his fingers while sitting in a bathtub. He had to bite down on the mechanical device around his head, which would pull the wires on his fingers and rip them off. He needed to do all that before the water level rises too much and causes him to be electrocuted. And surprisingly, he did. For a moment, Fitch bit down on the device and suffered unbearable pain for moments before he stopped, and then started again. This short break he took would ultimately lead to his death as the water level continued to rise and he wasted too much time. While he died quite quickly, the build-up to it was slow and agonizing, especially as he had his fingers half ripped off before he died. But if you think that was painful, this next victim had to endure insane pain while also having another challenge: Nina. Nina was a journalist who used her platform and her voice to actively harm people. So naturally, Jigsaw decided to target exactly that weapon she'd been using. This trap was part of Saw 3D's sequence of public, unwinnable games, which added this whole extra layer of humiliation to the torture. The mechanics were absolutely diabolical. Nina was tied up with a fishhook and string going down her throat, and that string was attached to a key buried inside her stomach. Bobby Dagan, who was being tested for his own lies about surviving a Jigsaw trap, had to pull that key out through her throat to save her. But here's the catch that makes this trap so insidious. If Nina made a sound during this process, spikes would begin to impale her throat and kill her. Not only does she have to endure insane pain, but she has to be quiet. The trap was testing both Nina's endurance and Bobby's resolve, but it was really designed to be a test of the impossible. Despite Bobby's desperate efforts to save her, Nina couldn't maintain her silence. He managed to rip the hook out of her, but she began screaming in pain and was slowly impaled by the spikes before Bobby could save her. Speaking of nightmare territory, the next death combines psychological torture with one of the most claustrophobic and impossible choices ever conceived. Captain Garza. Captain Angie Garza was a police superior who was implicated in the same systemic corruption that the Jigsaw copycat was trying to expose. She had history with Zeke Banks, but she was part of the problem he was trying to solve. The copycat designed this trap to be both torturous and symbolic, and obviously extremely painful. She was strapped down, completely unable to move as boiling hot wax began pouring directly onto her face. The wax was threatening to both suffocate and burn her simultaneously, creating this dual torture that attacked her in multiple ways at once. But here's where the trap gets truly diabolical. She was given an option to escape. All she had to do was sever her own spinal cord.
The only way to stop yourself from being suffocated is to sever your spinal cord,
which would leave her permanently paralyzed. Garza couldn't bring herself to do it. She died as the wax solidified around her face, simultaneously suffocating and burning her while she was fully conscious. Zeke discovered her body too late and was absolutely devastated by her loss, which added another layer of emotional trauma to an already brutal scene. Fans rank this highly because of the sheer impossibility of the choice and the combination of burning, suffocation, and complete helplessness. Even seasoned Saw fans were shocked by the brutality of this trap, and the claustrophobic setting made it even more disturbing to watch. And if you think impossible choices are bad, the next one got stuck with a painful and impossible task for a very dark reason. Seth Baxter. Seth was a murderer who had escaped justice through the legal system. So Detective Mark Hoffman decided to take matters into his own hands, with some personal revenge. The twist here is that this wasn't actually a real Jigsaw test. Hoffman was using Jigsaw's methods to cover his own tracks while eliminating someone he felt deserved to die. The setup was simple, but terrifying. Seth was shackled to a table with this massive pendulum blade swinging back and forth above him, getting lower with each swing. The blade was huge, sharp, and perfectly designed to create maximum dread as it slowly descended toward his body. The rules seem straightforward enough. Crush your hands in these metal devices to stop the blade from lowering. Seth actually followed the rules perfectly. He crushed his hands completely, enduring that agony because he thought it would save his life. But here's what makes this trap so much more horrific. Hoffman had rigged it from the beginning. The blade kept lowering no matter what Seth did. It sliced into his abdomen and began bisecting him in this slow, agonizing manner while he was fully conscious and realizing that his compliance had been meaningless. Hoffman watched the entire thing through a peephole, making sure Seth suffered as much as possible. This scene established Hoffman's ruthlessness and set up his rivalry with other characters, showing that he was willing to pervert Jigsaw's philosophy for his own revenge. But if following the rules and still dying is horrific, wait until you hear about this historical torture device that slowly roasted someone alive. Joyce Dagan was the wife of Bobby Dagan, whose lies about surviving a Jigsaw trap had made him famous and wealthy. Bobby had been going through his own series of tests, trying to save his friends to atone for his lies about being a Jigsaw survivor. Joyce represented the ultimate stakes. If he failed, the person he loved most would pay the price. She was locked inside this metal bowl, while Bobby was separated from her by an electric fence, forced to watch helplessly as the trap activated. Flames ignited beneath the bowl, and Joyce was slowly roasted alive inside this metal chamber. The ancient Greeks designed the brazen bowl specifically to maximize suffering. The metal would heat up gradually, cooking the victim from the outside in while amplifying their screams. The emotional impact on Bobby was devastating, as he realized that his lies and his failures had directly led to his wife's torture and death. He had to watch the person he loved most die horribly because of his own actions, which added this psychological torment on top of the physical horror. But even being slowly burned alive can't compare to what this con artist had to endure while fully conscious and aware. Mateo. Mateo was a con artist who had made the mistake of scamming John Kramer himself during the events of Saw X. Kramer designed this trap to force Mateo to atone for his deception by enduring the kind of extreme pain that matched the emotional damage he'd caused. The setting was this makeshift surgical room that heightened the horror with its medical authenticity. John Kramer and Amanda Young were both present, personally overseeing the test and adding gravity to every moment. Mateo was instructed to perform brain surgery on himself. While fully conscious, he had to remove a piece of his own brain tissue with his bare hands, while completely awake and aware of what he was doing. The psychological horror of self-mutilation, combined with the physical agony of literally digging into his own skull, created this perfect storm of suffering. When Mateo couldn't complete the task in time, a heated mask snapped shut on his face, melting his flesh right off his skull. The slow buildup of the brain surgery, followed by the sudden facial burning, made the whole experience even more traumatic. But this death was nowhere near as bad as the next one. Jill Tuck. Jill was John Kramer's ex-wife, and her death carried enormous weight for longtime fans, because she was the first person to actually die from the franchise's most iconic device, the reverse bear trap. The trap had appeared in multiple films and become the series' signature torture device, but viewers had never seen it actually kill someone until this moment. Jill's death was part of Detective Hoffman's personal vendetta against her. She had been trying to carry out John's final wishes, but Hoffman saw her as a threat to his own plans and power. The trap itself is designed to rip open the wearer's jaw in the most gruesome way possible. When that timer hit 0, the device snapped open with tremendous force, graphically tearing her face apart and splitting her head open. The mechanism is spring-loaded to create maximum damage in minimum time. but the violence is so extreme that even that brief moment feels endless. Hoffman watched with satisfaction as Jill died in agony, finally eliminating someone he saw as an obstacle to his own twisted version of Jigsaw's work. But even facial destruction can't compare to the medical realism and sheer agony of what this other con artist had to do to herself. Valentina was another con artist who had wronged John Kramer during the events of Saw X, and he made sure her punishment reflected the way she had bled people dry financially. The trap was designed to force her to literally bleed herself dry, sacrificing a part of herself to atone for her crimes. Kramer and Amanda were both present, overseeing the test, in this grim industrial room that made everything feel more authentic and more horrifying. Valentina's crime was personal to Kramer, which made the punishment feel targeted and specific, rather than random.
If you refuse, you'll remain in this room.
The setup was both medically plausible and viscerally horrifying, combining real medical procedures with the franchise's signature brutality. The trap required Valentina to saw off her own leg and then extract bone marrow through a tube to fill up a container. The medical detail was incredible. This wasn't some fantasy torture device, but something that felt like it could actually work. She had to amputate her own leg first, enduring that agony, while knowing that that was just the beginning of her ordeal. Valentina actually managed to complete the amputation, showing incredible determination and pain tolerance. But then came the bone marrow extraction, which required her to drill into her own bone and extract the marrow while she was already weakened from blood loss and trauma. She couldn't complete the marrow extraction in time, and a mechanical blade decapitated her while she was still conscious from the leg amputation. And if self-amputation sounds terrible, wait until you see what happened to this detective who got too close to the truth and paid the ultimate price. Detective Allison Carey was a recurring character who had a personal connection to the Jigsaw investigation and to her colleagues, which added serious emotional weight to her death. She was targeted specifically for her inability to let go of cases. Her obsession with solving mysteries and uncovering the truth had become her defining characteristic. So naturally, that's exactly what Jigsaw used against her. The Angel Trap is one of the most elaborate and symbolic devices in the entire franchise, designed by Amanda Young as part of her own twisted test of loyalty to Jigsaw's philosophy. The setting was this stark abandoned room that heightened the sense of doom and isolation, making Carrie's death feel even more hopeless and inevitable. Carrie had to retrieve a key from a jar of acid to unlock the harness around her chest.
All you have to do is reach in and take it.
The acid burned her hand as she reached in, but she pushed through the pain because she thought following the rules would save her life. But here's the truly horrific part. Amanda had designed the trap to be unwinnable from the beginning. No matter what Carrie did, no matter how much pain she endured, she was always going to die. When the harness activated, it ripped Carrie's ribcage open like angel wings while she was still alive and conscious. The mechanism literally spread her ribs apart and exposed her internal organs, creating this grotesque angel imagery that gave the trap its name. Amanda watched the entire thing, ensuring that the trap was fatal and that Carrie's suffering was complete. Carrie's death was slow and excruciating, with her screams echoing through the building as she realized that all her compliance and all her pain had been meaningless. The combination of physical agony and emotional impact makes this death particularly devastating, especially since fans had grown attached to Carrie as a character. But even having your ribs ripped open can't compare to the slow, inevitable psychological and physical torture of this FBI agent who made one wrong choice. FBI agent Peter Strahm was one of the smartest characters in the franchise, and his investigation had brought him dangerously close to exposing Detective Hoffman's true role in the Jigsaw murders. This trap was a direct confrontation between two of the series' most intelligent characters, making it as much a battle of wits as it was a torture device. Strahm's investigation skills and his ability to see through deception had made him a serious threat to Hoffman's plans. The trap was designed as a test of Strahm's ability to think outside the box and to trust his instincts, but it was also rigged to eliminate him as a threat to Hoffman's operations. The setting was deliberately claustrophobic, a small, reinforced room with a glass box in the center. When Strahm was locked inside, he was faced with a choice: get in the glass box or stay in the room as the walls began closing in. His investigative instincts told him that the box was the trap, so he refused to get inside and instead tried to escape the room. But that was exactly the wrong choice. The walls kept moving inward, slowly and inevitably crushing him while he was fully conscious and aware of what was happening. Every bone in his body was broken, gradually, as the space got smaller and smaller, with no way to speed up the process or escape the inevitable. Hoffman watched from safety, having set the trap specifically to eliminate his rival. Strom's death was agonizingly slow, with every moment of pain drawn out as he realized he had made the wrong choice and that there was no way to reverse it. And that brings us to the death that fans almost universally agree is the most excruciating and memorable in the entire Saw franchise. Timothy Young was the drunk driver who killed Jeff Denlin's son in a car accident, making this trap personal for everyone involved. The rack is widely regarded as the most painful trap in the Saw franchise, and Timothy's death represents everything that makes these films so mentally devastating. Jeff was given the ultimate test of his capacity for mercy and forgiveness. He could save Timothy's life, but only if he could let go of his need for revenge and his hatred for the man who destroyed his family. The trap was designed specifically to test whether Jeff could move past his grief and anger to show compassion for his son's killer. The setting was a random, grim, industrial warehouse that heightened the sense of dread and made everything feel more serious and more final. Timothy was strapped into a device that would slowly twist his limbs and head, breaking them one by one in a predetermined sequence designed to maximize both pain and psychological terror. When the trap activated, it began systematically destroying Timothy's body, piece by piece. First, his arms were rotated until the bones snapped, then his legs, then finally his neck. Each rotation was slow and deliberate, prolonging Timothy's suffering while Jeff struggled with his decision about whether to intervene.